back, everyone. It's been a while. It's been a while. And we've changed up things just a little bit for this week because I'm talking about a topic essentially that kind of started from last week. So we're changing the days on what shows are which. So this week we're doing MOAR Tech on Tuesday at 7:30 instead of 6:30, and on Thursday we're going to be going back to thank you. I know something just happened. But right. On Thursday, we're going to be having Esports Wrap at 6:30. Should be 6:30. Confirm with that a little bit later on. Check Twitter at @more_cookies. So this week we're going to be talking about Apple. And that's pretty much what I was trying to allude to a moment ago. So what's happening with Apple? They actually had an event last week where they were going over some new things that they were bringing out. One of which was Apple AirTags. Now, for me, by the way, now that I actually see what it is, Leah Star 242, thank you for following. Welcome to the cookie pack. So if you hear some jingling, okay, probably, yeah, my mic is actually blocking it. But AirTags essentially is the competitor to Tile. If you don't know what Tile is, if you don't know what AirTags are, then essentially what it is that these are things that allow you to drop them into your bag, into your wallet, on your keys, this, that, and the next. And for the most part, you can then connect them via Bluetooth to then update whenever you think you found, whenever you have lost something and you want to find it, then you just go and search for it on your phone. It tells you the location. Now, I've had some conversations with some persons regarding this, and some of them were very pro iPhone with it. They definitely wanted to go AirTags. Everything's Air. Me personally, I felt the need to stay on Tile, and let me explain that to you just really quickly. So the reason why I decided to stay on Tile instead of going with it is, one, it's locked to, well, the Apple ecosystem, meaning I'll need an iPhone. My go-to is not an iPhone, it's actually a Pixel from Google. I do have an iPhone, I just don't use it for much other than what I need to use it for, testing stuff, and that's pretty much about it. So it really wouldn't work for me. Whereas Tile works on pretty much everything. Is apparently iPhones are only good for selfies according to Twice. Hey Origins, welcome to the chat. Well, welcome Twice as well. So yeah, Tile on the other hand pretty much allows me to keep abreast of wherever my phone, well, I can track my phone for starters. I can have other people onto the account, and I can use other tags essentially to find other things. So my phone, I can hold down my tag, it'll start beeping. I want to find my keys, go into my phone. I can go on my iPhone, I can go into my Android. It doesn't really matter, I'm not locked. Let's see, iPhones are overpriced. Hype is what's keeping iPhones alive. I don't really agree with that. iPhones were always a thing back in the day originally because they were elite status type things. So that's what really made them popular. You always saw like the artsy crowd or the in crowd at a Starbucks or something like that with an iPhone. And that's what started getting people to really want an iPhone. They wanted to be in that crowd. So that's where it all started from. Then they really started to get better with their camera. They became known as the camera phone for a long time until Pixel took over. And then I think there are other phones like the OnePlus and a few others that have started to really start to make their way up there along with Samsung. And yeah, they look pretty. They were also known to be the simple phone. Like, it's basic. where, you know, you can give it to a kid and they can figure it out. They actually gave the iPhones to monkeys, and the monkeys were able to play the games and figure out the iPhone. So that's the kind of gist behind where Apple really is. They simplify things. They pioneer, aka take other things, reinvent them to make them simpler. That's pretty much it. But I'm not here to rip on Apple. We're actually here to talk about Apple today. So that was a cool little thing that they came out with. Do I really think it's needed? No, I really don't. It's expensive for starters, and it's locked into an ecosystem that is not great. That it's locked into an ecosystem. Just sorry, not sorry. Say only Apple I support is the fruit. Well, I mean, the fruit is not a bad one. I actually do enjoy apple juice. That being said, they came out with something else called Apple TV Plus, and so that's a few extra things. It's okay. I will say though, one cool thing that they did, now that I think back about it, with the Apple tags, is that if someone was to slip one into your bag, for an example, it would give a little notification sound, so you would know that there's something up in your bag, meaning that you won't just automatically be tracked. And whenever they decide to find out where's my tag, let's see where they live. Yeah, so that one's a little bit different. That one's actually a good add-in, I will admit. Apple also brought in a 4K TV, which is the first time for them. Which I'll admit, I was actually surprised when I realized that they had not gone 4K yet. Because that's a very big thing. That's a lot of people are getting into the 4K streaming now and preparing for 8K streaming now, which we don't really need. But overall, it's got a pretty nice chip. It's a 812 chip, which I remember correctly was a version that they had inside one of the previous iPhones. And allows it to have HDR and faster frame rates. So even over AirPlay, which is actually pretty decent. That means that it's playing from your iPhone to your TV. I can't really complain about that. Let's see. I respect people's decisions to like iPhones, but they don't say things like it is the best. It's not the best phone, but it's situational. I'll say it that. The ecosystem is amazing, so if you're already in the Apple ecosystem, an iPhone just makes sense to a lot of people. And in terms of the 60 hertz screen on any Apple device, well, I mean, that should be coming pretty soon. I would support Apple if they weren't so overpriced. That's a whole nother thing. That's part of the elitism right there. Like that's their thing. With the new Apple TV 4K though, there's a new Siri Remote, which it has an outer ring and a 5-way control. So it's a lot more, think old school AirPod, like with the dial, and that's pretty much what you're getting on a remote. It also has a power button, so you can turn off the TV, and the Siri button is now on the side, much like it is on the iPhones. So they're kind of consolidating the design idea, which is not bad. They also added in a light sensor with the new version of iOS that your iPhone will calibrate to your TV exactly to compensate for any slight shifts in color and brightness. So if you move your iPhone to a point on the screen, and well, off you go. So then they came out with the new 24-inch iMacs, which I mentioned on my TikTok video. If you guys haven't checked me out on TikTok, please check it out. More cookies, no underscore or anything like that in there. But they're going very much back old school, but new school with this. They're going old school in that they're going back to colors, which we haven't seen since the plastic backed versions way back when. But they are now the thinnest iMacs out there, using a new M1, well, I shouldn't say a new M1 chip, but the M1 chip that they've been using from last year is now out inside these new iMacs, and supposedly they work very well. Me personally, I'm a little worried about overheating because of the taxing nature that computers typically have. That's my real concern. And the fact that they actually shrunk down the heat sinks inside these and pretty much just gave them 2 fans, like small fans, like roughly around this big, to vent all of that heat out. Granted, they took out the graphics, the GPU, CPU, and like they pretty much merged 3 chips into the one M1 chip, and they're saying that the battery efficiency and power efficiency is much better because of that and allows them to save space, which I'm hoping pretty much means that, you know, this doesn't generate too much heat, but I'm still concerned. Let's see. I'd love to use an Apple Watch and iPad while having my OnePlus phone. That would be great. The only unfortunate thing is that's probably never going to happen. Even when it comes to iMessage, Apple pretty much said, you know, paraphrasing a lot here with this, but essentially they're saying that they would be shooting themselves in the foot if they allowed Androids to have iMessage, because that's their thing. They want it to be just for them. Now in terms of AirDrop to your PC to connect them all, that would be nice, but you can already do that with a lot of other things. You can screen mirror to your phone, to your computer using like Visor. You can have text coming to your computer with Mighty Text. There's a lot of different things. You can even like drag and drop files across using different apps. It just depends, and you just have to have it connected. Can it be wireless though? Some, if you do a Bluetooth, but it's a little wonky, so it's not perfect. And Twice is saying, is it bad that I'm actually hyped for it even though the specs aren't that great? Yes and no. Yes, in that you're by all means feel free to be hyped about anything you want to be hyped. I would personally say don't jump for it within 3 to 6 months of it coming out. But that's just me personally. Now I know they came with some true tone colors, and they're saying like it's great for color. Like the color on it is very, very true to life, which is great in case you want to do things like videography or art, because you need those colors to be on point when you're doing things like that. But yeah, the neural engine will be used in a new format as well, especially because it has a front-facing camera that's 1080p. That's pretty much going to be using the neural networking engine that's on the new M1 chip to, what should I say this, improve the color and sharpness, and a lot of like they have like 6 different things that it pretty much works on to enhance, to make sure that you have a very good webcam quality. They also have it set up where the speakers pretty much have 2 woofers and a tweeter, so on both sides, so it gives you good sound, and it also has noise accuracy, so that it actually can pick up on your voice using several different microphones to make sure that you're not really getting anything in your background or from anything that you might be listening to too much. So it kind of adjusts just to you, kind of like one of these nice microphones would do in a sense, except this is just one microphone that is super powered to pretty much collect just my voice and not anything behind me. So if I snap my fingers, it's not as clear as if it was in front of me or whatnot. But with this, because it has it, it's a lot like what they do with phones, a few microphones around the place, and it just collects it very nicely. Let's see, editing clips and stuff. Yeah, you're right. So in terms of connections, these new iMacs have a 4-time USB-C port, which is good, especially considering that the laptops pretty much only had one USB-C connection previously. So I think they probably learned from that just a little bit, and you know, a PC needs a little bit more than just one versus, you know, a laptop. And I'm hoping that in the future the laptops come with more as well. You'll see that probably later on this year though. It has 2 Thunderbolts, which is great, and a magnetic power cable and a small power adapter. Of course, the Ethernet connects to the power adapter and runs to the power, which is nice, but I feel like they could have just built it in one time, because if your power, well, actually no, if your power adapter breaks, you can't use your iMac. So yeah, you kind of need to get a new adapter anyway. And lastly but not least, they're bringing Touch ID over to the iMac using the new keyboards that they have. So yeah, we're going to be moving over into the iPad Pros now. Now, I will admit the new iPad Pro we're getting into the pricing by the way, twice. King of charging you more for less. I agree, but let's get into the iPad Pro. For starters, they're coming with the M1 chip. You know, that's great. I'm a little surprised that they're putting the same chip they have inside of an iMac into an iPad Pro. Especially since there's no venting system with this, like they have with the iMac. So at least they knew that there were going to be more thermal requirements on something like a computer versus a tablet. But I feel like their entire video from, like, what was it, 3 years ago, it was pretty much like, what's a computer? Pretty much saying that tablets are going to replace the personal computer. They're trying for that. You can see them building up for it, but at the same time, if they built it like this, they recognize that it can do more and have more power than a tablet. So when we get into it, iPad OS is going to be pretty much having a 50% jump in performance versus the last gen iPad, and the battery life is going to be better. There's about 40% better graphical performance, and they say it's about 1,500 faster than the first iPad model, which I don't know, well, iPad Pro model, which I don't know why they'd really be comparing it to something like that, considering that's 12 years ago. Again, that's 12 years ago. Why are you comparing it to something from then? That's over a decade ago. Some people weren't, actually no, I could say some people weren't born yet, but I mean technically someone was not born just yesterday, so. But thankfully, this will have USB-C as well. So yeah, you don't need to be stuck with a Lightning connector. You're also going to be getting, get this, a Thunderbolt built into it as well. Yes, you're right. Well, you heard that right. You're getting Thunderbolt on an iPad. Now, that's going to be using the USB 4 connectivity. It's going, but with the USB-C type connector. So you're getting the best of both worlds right there. There's new camera system on the iPad. It's the same 4 mic setup from previous, however, but there's actually going to be smart HDR3 that's built into it thanks to the new M1 chip, meaning that your colors are going to pop a lot more when you take your photos or videos. But there's one thing that a lot of people, and I know there are going to be people that buy an iPad Pro and they kind of bring it to somewhere like the Bahamas or somewhere that doesn't have 5G at this exact moment, and they're going to be like, so I want to get 5G on my phone. How do I get that? The love of all that is sweet, holy, and or defiled, but it's going to be based off of where you are, and there will be models that will not probably work on the carrier that you want it to. So be careful when you buy your iPad Pro with 5G built inside of it, because it might be running on something that doesn't really support the native 5G network. It might be a different type of frequency that they carry versus, because remember, if you're going and you're bringing it to somewhere like the Bahamas, then you're going across to the United States to buy it. They have AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, so on and so forth, and most of them have different frequencies, which means most of them, guess what, they have different models. So you have to get the one that is most likely going to be the model that we use down here, which is really not that great of an option because 5G is not coming anytime soon, which means you're not going to be figuring out what model to actually get because you won't know what frequency to get. So I would just wait. Implying the conspiracy theorists over here want 5G. Yeah, they... how should I put this? There are conspiracy theorists about 5G everywhere in the world. If they see a tower, they think it's 5G. If they see a new tower, they think it's 5G. That's just simply not the case. Even here, they thought the 5G towers were going up. They were just new, regular LTE towers. Nothing 5G about them. So, yeah. Now, I would like to say, Apple did a really nice touch with the front-facing camera on the iPad Pro. They brought something that is typically more PC-centric, and it's more so with actual webcams, where they pretty much give you an ultra-wide angle, and then they use software to pretty much track your face. So if I move to the right, then the camera focuses more onto my face over here, and when I move to the right, to the left, it does the same thing. They also have a nice feature to where if someone else comes into the frame and I'm over here, it pans out so that you can actually see them over here as well. Now, of course, they're going to be coming out with something new in terms of display, how crystal it is. Yeah, so there's a new liquid Retina HDR display with 1000 nits of brightness and 1600 nits at peak brightness. I wouldn't really suggest running it that high, but hey. Now, it does run HDR10, Dolby Vision, and Atmos, so you're going to be getting one of the best viewing experiences that you can pretty much get anywhere, even on one of the better TVs that you can probably buy. Granted, it's on a smaller scale. It's only on a 12-inch tablet, and you're going to be having to deal with the audio that comes from it. But if you want something that's portable and that you can watch stuff on, by all means, this is your baby right here. And while they said all-day battery life, that always depends. Always depends on how you use it. Now, we're going to be moving just a little bit differently. They came up with a few other things, such as Apple Card family. So we already know what Apple Card is. It's pretty much something that ties into your Apple ID, your credit card system that's on there, and you can use this card, which doesn't have any numbers, or it just has your name on it, that you can use to pay for things. And for a lot of people, that's great for security, because then you give someone your card, they can't go like taking the numbers off of it kind of thing. They just swipe it and that's it. Yeah, Apple Card. Wait, you don't know about Apple Card? Check that out. It's actually pretty neat. They have their own card system, but you have to have a US bank account, or a supporting bank account, I should say, from whichever country that supports it. And not every country supports it, and not every bank in every country supports it. That's one of the things very similar to what they did with Apple Pay and Google Pay and stuff like that. They work with the banks to get this to work over there. Otherwise, you have to use, like I said, a US bank account, and then it would be charged for whatever. So if you use it here, you're going to be charged, well, the currency conversion fee. So it's not really the best in terms of stuff like that. But they came up with Apple Card Family, which is interesting for one main reason. They allow anyone over the age of 13 to essentially have a debit card or credit card, whatever you actually have on your Apple ID. Which means if you trust your kids well enough, then and have a credit card on your Apple ID, well, buddy boy. you're in trouble. Let's see. You say it sounds more inconvenient than anything if you don't live in the US, that is. Like I said, there are more countries that have it. It's just countries like ours, like the Bahamas, we just don't, which is unfortunate. But we don't have a lot of things, period, because of how our government works. And actually, no, not necessarily our government, but our banking system works. And that's because we have pretty much mainly foreign banking that don't check for us like that. They just do their own thing and do the much better stuff back home in Canada. So, yeah. Then they actually came out with another neat thing called Apple Podcast subscriptions. So for those of you that don't know, if you do listen to podcasts, there's Apple Podcasts where, you know, people can upload their podcast to Apple devices and people can find them easily on iTunes to download them, listen to them, or stream them, however you want to do it. This now allows for persons to pretty much put in whatever type of fee that they want. Let's say I want to take this stream, make it my podcast, like what we normally do. So if you want the audio version of these podcasts, they typically come out within 24 hours afterwards of the live stream. And we put it up pretty much everywhere. Google, Apple, Spotify, so on and so forth. So you can always listen to it on the go. What Apple is doing is they're saying, okay, well, you can help support the creators of the podcast that you listen to by buying or subscribing to their podcast. And so that can be anywhere from, I think, about 50 cents. I'm just double checking my facts really quick. Yeah, about 50 pennies, so 50 cents per month to whatever they want to set it up to. The only problem is people have found that Apple is going to be taking for the first year 30% of whatever that creator makes, and the second year they're going to be taking 15%. I think it's going to continue after that. So yeah, it's not necessarily the best, but that kind of lines up with how Apple takes the revenue share anyway. That's what actually a number of online revenue share percentages normally is. They take 30% of whatever it is that you make off of their platform. A good thing is that they're not locking anyone down into being Apple exclusive, but at the same point, they are probably going to be making it so that they would prefer things like ads to not be on the subscription versions. So if you have a version that you normally throw up everywhere, for example, you might not be able to necessarily in the future do that with Apple podcast subscriptions. And you probably need a version just for that. So essentially, you would have a version for Apple that doesn't have any ads, but for Spotify and Google podcasts and stuff like that, then you'd have the one that has your ads that's built into it or whatever it is. So another thing that they're saying is that creators will be able to enroll in the new Apple Podcasters program, which will provide access to all the tools needed to build and distribute premium subscriptions on podcast for $19.99 or $19.99. I think that's both in pounds and US dollars, and $25 if you're in Australia per year. So there's that, which has gotten others to start upping their game. So for example, Spotify has now come out with a competitor pretty much saying that, you know, they are, and it's unfortunate that they're doing it like this, but they're giving out 3 price tiers: a $2.99, $4.99 and $7.99 per month model. So you can select from which episodes will be behind the paywall as the creator. You can put your entire thing behind a paywall or just certain episodes. You can have samples, so on and so forth. So they're starting that off. That's going to be started off with just 12 podcasts that's in the States, and then slowly build up over time. They have NPR working with them with some other shows. that's going to be getting in on that. And they are also getting exclusivity to certain platforms, but also behind a paywall. So it's a little funky, but it's also nice that there are others getting in on this, because let's be honest, a lot of podcasters, they don't make a lot of money unless it's coming from ads or Patreon or something like that. And those ads only pretty much work if you have enough people listening to your podcast, either when you're live, and if you're live, then you're having an ad like in the middle of your podcast, or if you are editing it in, then that's just going to be the audio version. So you need people to actually listen to the audio version of your podcast. And that would be the metrics based on that. So if you're only pulling in like maybe 100 listeners, you're not going to be making a lot of money or being able to attract pretty much any real money from a marketer. But if you're reaching a few thousand, then you get a whole lot more into that. And so something like this helps. But at the same point, you have to be willing to actually help out. So in a sense, it's very much like Twitch with the subscription models, and YouTube for whenever you get high enough, then you can subscribe, which is a lot higher than Twitch. But this, I think, is more ground level, which is neat. Now, I did also want to talk on, let's see, it's extremely hard to monetize podcasts because of the lack of visuals. You're right. Podcasts just on a whole, unless there's something like this, isn't really that entertaining. And even then, sometimes this isn't what people are looking for. Sometimes they want 2 or 3 or 4 people on there all having a conversation, which we do have at times. But sometimes they also want something like, what's that really trippy podcast that became, well, something on Netflix. Anyway, it's pretty much this podcast that they put visuals over it. They talk some really existential type of conversations on there. And if you watch the video that's on Netflix, oh man, just don't be on drugs. That's all I'm gonna say, because it looks like someone made it when they were on LSD. Hopefully that does not get me like demonetized on anything with me saying that just now. But yeah, they are also, when it comes to iOS 14.5, which they said was going to be rolling out soon. The thing about that is that, well, in terms of user privacy, they are forcing apps now to make it mandatory to say, hey, we are tracking you across whatever it is that you're doing, even if it's within the app. They're letting people know, hey, we have analytics to see what you click on, how often you click on it, that kind of thing. And they are banning, soft banning, but they are banning any apps that incentivize you to enable that app analytics that they might have built inside the app until they fix it. So yeah, they're really cracking down on the privacy of their apps now, which is interesting. I would say that most persons probably should have it on, just for the app developers to know how to better improve their apps for you. But if you're more concerned about privacy, then by all means, I think that's something that you should probably turn off and make sure. And only podcasts that you really watch are ones with videos. That's why we keep the video and we put the video up on YouTube. So if in case you want to watch it on YouTube, bam, there you go. If you want to listen to the audio version, well, audio versions are available as well. I think that's probably the smartest thing to do. And oh crap, I just noticed you subscribed at Prime. Thank you twice. Welcome, not to the cookie pack, but to the cookie jar. Welcome, friend. Welcome. So, like I was saying, this whole thing is based off of the app tracking transparency that they pretty much have. So it's going to be saying something that's essentially allow app to track your activity across other companies, apps, and websites. Your data will be used to measure advertising efficiency, and you can either click ask app not to track or allow. And the first option is, of course, not to track. Hey, use that bitten cookie. Actually, no, bite that cookie. Bite it. Bite it hard. But I think some of the developers themselves are probably going to have a problem with the fact that Apple is pretty much making that do not track the very first option, because a lot of times people see the first option as the default one. This is what I probably should click, which is typically why for gaining permissions, allow is normally the first option. Or whenever you're doing anything like it's submit or cancel, this or cancel. That's the go-to action. That's the call, the main call to action right there. And so I don't know how a lot of app developers are going to feel about that one specifically. I don't think they're going to probably be too happy. Just a reminder to myself, and going back in time a little bit to earlier on in this episode, remember how I was talking about the M1 chips that are in the new iMacs and the new Apple iPod Pro 12? Well, here's the thing. They're already working on the new M2, which is going to be coming out later on this year. So reports are saying the M1 has an 8-core CPU and an 8-core GPU on the M1 chip. They're saying that based on reports from what they have, the M2 is going to be using a, let me see, I know it was I would have sworn I saw a report saying that it was probably going to have a 16-core GPU and an 8-core CPU, but I'm not seeing that right now anymore. Kind of weird. Either way, this is going to probably make somewhere like Intel or AMD start to wonder just a little bit about the silicon that they're pumping out, because if they start to do this well enough, and if they're willing to make the extra money, because let's not forget, Apple technically is one of the world's largest banks. Yes, they have their own bank. Legit. Like their own lending fees, investing, all that inside Apple. A lot of people don't know that. They've had that for years. At least over a decade now. So if they want to make that extra buck, then they might start selling those silicon out. Yeah, they have a whole bank. I didn't stutter. That's what I said. A lot of people don't know about it. Don't worry. I'm bringing you into the loop now. Now you know. But yeah, so they're saying that these M2 chips are probably going to be starting to come out in mass supply as soon as July. So that means, personally, I would still wait. Like I said, that 3 to 6 months. Wait to see what comes out and see if perhaps by chance it makes more sense just to wait so you can get that boost of whatever comes out later on this year. That's pretty much what you do with cell phones. They come out with these lower end phones and then they come out with the bigger phones and better phones later on in the year. That's just how it is. That's their way of making the better buck. And from what I understand, these are going to be on the 5mm chipsets, so they're going to be very, very efficient. Now, some quick information outside of Apple stuff, just to end things off for the night. In case you ever heard about something called popcorn time, which was essentially a Netflix for pirates. Essentially, whatever you wanted to watch, you can stream it on this. It got shut down a few years ago, and it's been in a legal battle since. But From what they're saying, it's coming back. And even if it gets shut down again, the way how to build it back up is now on GitHub. That means anyone can take it and put it back up if they're willing to. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of these streaming sites that a lot of people use will probably start going down in time, but they probably might be there as a good backup. If you want to find out more news about it, though, a good news website, emphasizing the word news because it's not, you don't go there to download anything, is Torrent Freak. Look it up. They've always been one of my good go-to places when it comes to finding out information regarding what's happening with the torrent community. Even back in the day when it was like, these are the top movies that people are downloading, that's how I used to find what was interesting and what was actually worthwhile going to maybe to watch at the movies. Wink wink. And lastly and not least, a lot of places are getting into branded content marketing, or marketplaces, I should say. So for example, streamers. If you're interested in creating merchandise for your fans, then you will either have something on Stream Elements or Stream Labs, or Made by Humans, or some other website that creates these physical things that people can buy from you that have content that you would create, designs, logos, that kind of thing. Things that helps engage your audience. Instagram seems to be wanting to get in on that too. So based off of what I'm seeing, they say that creator shops would be an extension of the company's existing shopping features, which allows businesses to sell products. And that they see a lot of creators setting up shops too. One part of being a content creator business model is you create great content, then you can sell your stuff, and so you can have creator shops as something awesome. Zuckerberg is saying that the company is working on tools that would enable Instagram stars. So that's a whole nother thing. It's like, which level are they going to allow this to be created on? To get paid for promoting products. Creators should be able to get a cut of the sales of things that they're recommending, and should build up an affiliate recommendation marketplace to enable that to all happen. Finally, Instagram is working on a branded content marketplace that would help match influencers with sponsors, which is something that we've seen with a number of different websites over the past 5 years or so, roughly, because a lot of places will be like, hey, we'll help you find people based off of your type of content and how much viewers that you have and this, that, and the next. Instagram saying essentially that they'll do the same thing, but it's more focused just on the Instagram creators. He noted that a tool could help enable up-and-coming talent, key thing, to monetize and help create a creator middle class. So you're not high up there, you're not starting out, but you're doing decent, and you can maybe start up in here. I think that's what they're saying. There's no actual information on how these deals would be structured, he said, but the plan is to offer very favorable terms. I have a feeling it's going to be that 30-70 split, like I mentioned earlier again, and that they're not building this up from the perspective of us trying to make a lot of money. Maybe they might be going to 15. The new tools are still in the work, but could dramatically shift the way of influencers monetizing their following on the platform. So if you are on that, then by all means, keep an eye out. See if it might be something worthwhile. Twice is saying they are making branding easy for real. Like, every streamer has a merch shop now, and it takes 10 minutes to create if you're doing the bare minimum. And you're right. The only issue is actually making apparel that looks good and that people actually want to buy. Because let's be real. If I have to buy merch from someone online, have it shipped here to the Bahamas, that means I'm buying it, which means I need to be cheap, which means it can't, not cheap, but inexpensive. because that's going to be a cost on my shipping, my duty, my customs, and my VAT. Which I think clothes is like 35% of whatever the cost is. So yeah, I don't need your hoodie to cost me $60. I know some of the times you can like make a bare minimum, like maybe add an extra dollar on, and that's still like 20 something bucks for like a hoodie. So it's a little hair there, but by all means, I do suggest checking it out. But if you are across multiple platforms, probably having it just on Instagram might not be your best bet. I would always suggest see where you can get the best terms and conditions, along with the best cut and the best quality item, because a lot of these places, some of their items, they'll give you a lower deal where they pretty much like really like cut down on how much it costs, but the fabric quality just ain't there. Like I mentioned earlier, folks, this is not the normal day for Talking Tech. That's normally Thursdays, and it's normally at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to check in, check us back next week Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This Thursday, we're going to be talking about esports, and that's going to be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be talking about the fighting game community codes of conduct, and I'm actually part of that, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on that, so, and how things have been going, along with a few other things that's happening in the esports world that people might not know about. So keep an eye out, and until next time, folks, keep it savvy.